Why pay $30, $40 for somebody else's Negan bat? These are cosplay safe. And both can be made for about $15 each. What I call the dry or bloody. Interested? Here we go. The tools and supplies you'll need for this build are painter's tape, a 1-inch chip brush, a thinner number 3 brush, various brown paints. I'll talk more about those later. Bloody red paint, a bat. This one's 34 inches long. Louisville Slugger, $5. This is a plastic bat, 30 inches. These come in different colors. The one I actually painted up was red. These are all black. And then some barbed wire, and I'll post a link to where you can get this below. This is leather fake barbed wire, and it's awesome. Keeping it safe, but making it look real. A drill is helpful, but it's not necessary. You could poke a hole with this glue gun. High temperature, low temperature, totally up to you. Both will work. The other challenge is trying to get the black oval. Originally I thought that it was probably right where the Louisville Slugger circle is, but I've looked at a lot of things online and I really think it's further down and it's a little more narrow. What I've done is outlined the Louisville Slugger on the perimeter. Originally I was just going to put it in place here, but I've been rethinking it and I'm going to slide it down this way and make it a little more narrow. But this is going to be my starting point. Every build has iconic pieces that you really need to nail in order for the prop or the costume to be really recognized. The black circle and the barbed wire are the two things. The color of the bat, most people may or may not pick up on that. You bloody the bat, but the circle and the wraps of barbed wire are the key identifiers on this bat. Very few people could tell you whether it was 36 inches or 34 inches unless you're an uber fan. When I make my costume builds, I try to get really close at a reasonable price. If you really wanted to go crazy on price, then you could get it movie or show dead accurate. But we're trying to go for 80, 90% and a lot cheaper. For this, I'm going to try to do thicker blue tape, or you could just line up a bunch of these blue tapes. I'm using blue tape because it seems to do slightly better than standard masking tape. As I did when I traced on the bat, I've taped on the cutting board the outline, and then I'm going to take a sharp knife and cut out the edges, and then I'll just be able to tape that on the bat. I cut out the inside circle first. Now I'm going to start cutting the edge. Flattened it out, these ends. All right, if I've done this right, it's going to work. It'll be awful close. Come on. Yep. Might clean it up a little bit more here. There's my general outline of the Lucille circle. So when I spray paint, the actual plastic of the bat will show through. So there's the circle, more in line where I think it belongs on the bat, and then the barbed wire goes over it here. I'm going to sand down this shiny surface so that the paint that I put on has a better chance of adhering. In order to hang the bat for painting, I'm just using one of these clips here. And I've taken it off and then just pinched it together and slid it into this hole. That way it will allow me to hang the bat, actually slide the bat around. Taking a sanding sponge and just giving a fine run over, dulls it a little bit, but it will also give a better chance for the paint to adhere. You can see where I offset the circle. I'm really happy with that. I've made sure that it goes down really tight, so when I paint, it's not going to be an issue. I'll just be able to pull it right up and the black will reveal itself. If there's a little bit of this logo in there, I'm not too worried about it, so I'll just paint over it. Here's the bat ready to go for painting. And I'm going to use satin brown boots. See how that turns out. Trying to get the bat color is kind of interesting. It's obviously not black. First run. Focusing on getting around the circle. This is the one I put the tape on. You can see the outline of the tape. I'm going to take that off after I do the detail work. I wanted to give you a sense of what the difference of using a little bit of color on the bats make. I used a combination of real brown, and burnt sienna. Here's what the colors look like. That's the real brown, that one. This is the real brown, this one, and here is the burnt sienna. And what I'm using is a chip brush brush it on, it's just hitting highlights. So that'll give you a sense of what it does to the bat. It really does add character. Here you can see the end that hasn't been done yet. Let me show you how I did this. So got it on the brush and then I just stroke it down. Now you can see that seems to be a lot of color going on there. But then I'm just gonna repeat the pattern with the 3 different colors. And I'm keeping on the ring for now because I'm gonna pull that off at the last minute. So you can start with this, and then you just keep alternating back and forth and building up the layers so that it looks more and more like a weathered bat. You can see it also brings out the highlights of the wood grain, as opposed, they're all kind of flat here. Not hitting it with a lot, and then you just alternate. I don't even clean the brush off. Here's the other real brown, and I'm just pouring a little bit, not too much, and then the burnt sienna, just using a regular paper plate. This is more red, the other real brown, and I'm just going to lay that over on top of that and lighten that up a little bit. And then hit it with a little burnt sienna. You can see the red. So each color is kind of dramatic in its own way, but when you layer them on top of each other, it really does give the character that I'm looking for the bat. Not too much. It's more dry brushing than anything else. So I'll work on the rest of the bat and show you what the end result is. I made sure I went around the edge with a sharp cutter so that when I pulled the tape off, it wouldn't pull up this paint over here. That worked out really well. And then I just took some standard acrylic black paint and a number 3 paintbrush, and then just went around the outline to make sure that everything was uniform. And if you push on the brush, you can see that it's just about the right width for that circle. I'm using the tape from the other bat as the model, and then I'm just going around and outlining with a very thin black marker, and then I'll paint that area in between. It helps give me the outline for the paint job. And then I just lift this off carefully and fill it in with either paint or marker. This is what happens when you work with paint that's not completely dry, but that's okay. I'm going to fill that in with paint. It's going to all work out. The marker gives you a really good outline to paint to. You don't have to paint all the way to the edge because the marker takes care of that. Let's spend a minute talking about fake barbed wire. This right here is 8 feet. The barbs, there was only 8 of them, and you can see what they are. This cost me $8. Don't buy this. This cost me $16. That's including shipping. It's got a realistic look, and yet it's completely safe. It says it's made out of leather. I'll post below where you can get this. Something to note, I went outside and I sprayed them with Krylon matte clear coat. That way they're not overly shiny, but I tell you what, it just dried the paint right out. Since I have 2 of these, I'm going to make one bloody and one not for contrast purposes, so you can decide which one you might prefer. I had bought 5 meters because I wasn't sure how much I would need. This is 2.5 meters. I think 2 meters would be too little. 3 meters would be a little bit more than you need, but all you would do is just put some extra wraps on there so you wouldn't lose it. I would get 3 meters. I've given a lot of thought on how I'm going to attach this barbed wire. First thing I'm going to do is come across, cut a piece off, and this is going to be for the top. And then I'm going to drill a 1/8 inch hole, which is about the thickness of the barbed wire. There we go. Come across here, drill another hole. Whoa. And then just stuff it in. That seems to work. Put another hole right here and start wrapping. Just put in the hole like that and start wrapping it around. That allows you to get some good tension on there. Just evenly space it. If you have to rewind it a couple times, it's not a big deal. And you want to come up right around where the circle is. I'm going to come up here like this and then just drill and pop it right there. Ah, I haven't even glued it yet, and pretty happy how that turned out. I wrapped the bloody bat the same way I wrapped the dry bat. Couple thoughts on these things now that I've built 2 of them. If you can avoid it, you want to put the end on the opposite side of the circle so it doesn't draw attention. The other thing is you can hide things like a seam on top of the bat using the barbed wire. In order to get the wrap to come around here, I actually had to drill a second hole. This is my first hole that I'm going to hide with the barbed wire, but I just rotated 180 degrees on this side of the bat, and I was able to move the end of the barbed wire into the back. I have the circles in different places on these 2 bats. On this, the circle goes between, that's 12 inches, that's 15 inches. On this one, it's around 13.5 and 10.5. You can see that there's a little closer distribution on the barbed wire on this one than this one. Most people aren't going to notice. They will notice this. They will notice this. And you can cover all sorts of mistakes with fake blood. And there are a couple little flaws in here. I'm not going to give them all away. So here comes the blood stage next. Back color, blooding bats. There's probably a whole science to it. Here's my Demogorgon, Stranger Things, Steve bat. Some people call it the babysitter. And I wanted to make sure the silver was showing through. Figure if you're going to hit something, that the tips are certainly going to be bloodied. And there's going to be some back splatter. I'm going to try to do the same thing here. I'm going to use this cardinal red. Looks like dry blood. I prefer to dry brush. I also have a paper towel at the ready in case I do too much. For Negan, you got to think that he's going to leave it bloody purely for intimidation purposes. But he may take all the big chunky pieces off so it doesn't stink too much. Now here we go. We're going to try the chip brush. See, it doesn't take much at all. The great thing about the chip brush is that it kind of splatters. I'm going to do the end because it seems to be always red. Maybe heavy in places, especially where glue is showing up. Doesn't take much at all. And then you might want to come down to here and a little bit into the handle. If you want to get a nice hand grip, you could kind of put it on your hand and put it down there. Totally up to you. This is personal design. I'll post the link to my build of this babysitter Stranger Things bat below in case you're interested. I noticed some of the rows are a little loose, so I've gone through and just trying to, in each row, do at least one of the barbs from behind and concealed so that you can't see the glue. Keep it in place. Doesn't take much. Then you'll see all these little strings. Now you could keep it on there if you really wanted to from the glue, or you just pull them off. Pretty happy with these builds. These are cosplay safe. They won't hurt anybody. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more cosplay builds of all kinds coming soon.